Am I streaming? Testing, testing. 3, 2, 1. Woohoo! Okay, let's make sure I have everything set up with audio. This is in. And then I need my Google Translate. Hello, hello! I'm quickly making sure I have everything I need. Boop. Okay, that's good. Let's test the audio. Can you guys hear the music? Okay, I think the music works. Music's good. Audio's good. Hello, hello, hello. Vocal exercise good. Gabe, thank you so much for the follow. I have something for you. Watch this. Pretty cute, right? And Gabe says, yay! I'm glad you liked it. Let's do a quick prayer over today's live stream for today's reading. Boop, boop. Amen. Okay, cool. With that being said, let us get started with today's reading. Book 3, Chapter 1 on Chrysostom on Priesthood. Let's go. Are you guys ready for this? Chrysostom's withdrawal was not due to arrogance. Chrysostom, such then is the reply I should give in answer to the charge insulting those who would have promoted me, and to prove that, in refusing this dignity, I had no wish to bring disgrace on them. I will now endeavour to the best of my power to make it clear that I was not puffed up with arrogance. Had the offer of a generalship or a kingdom had been made to me, and had I then formed this decision, perhaps this idea might have occurred to some, or rather, they would have judged me guilty of arrogance, but of folly. But when what is offered is the priestly office, which is as far superior to a kingdom as a spirit is to the flesh, will anyone dare to charge me with contempt? Is it not? Sorry for the crying. I hope it's good tears. Is it not strange to charge with folly those who refuse small honors? But what men do the same with regard to exceeding great honors, to exempt them from the accusation of folly, and to substitute that of pride? Is it as if you were to accuse a man of insanity, and not of arrogance? Who despised a herd of oxen, and refused to take charge of it, but were to say that he who refused the kingdom of the whole world, and the generalship of all armies, everywhere was guilty, not of madness, but of extreme pride? However, this is absolutely wrong, and those who make such statements disparage themselves and not us. Merely to think that it is possible for human nature to despise that dignity shows that the opinion of office held by those who express such an idea. For if they had not regarded it as commonplace and unimportant, such a suspicion would never have occurred to them. Why has no one ever dared to suspect or suggest the idea that about the office of angels that the human soul is so proud as to refuse to enter their rank? Who form high ideas of those powers? And if this does not allow us to believe that any man could conceive anything greater than that dignity, and so those who accuse us of this could more justly be accused of arrogance themselves. For they would never have suspected this in others if they had not despised the office as insignificant. Nessa says, you literally look like an adorable boba ball. Oh my god. Thank you. I love boba. Oh my gosh, the one known as Ego. Thank you so much for liking the live. Boop, ba-doop. Now, chapter 2. He was not actuated by ambition. If they say that my action is caused by my ambition, they will be convicted by their own words and be manifestly fighting against themselves. I do not know what arguments they could have sought instead of these, had they wished to acquit me of the charge of vainglory, for if this desire ever entered my mind, I should have been sure to accept the office and not refuse it. Why? Because it had brought me great fame. If anyone, as young as myself, who had only just abandoned worldly pursuits, was suddenly deemed by all so marvellous as to be preferred to those who have spent all their life in such toil, and to receive more votes than any of them, this would have caused all men to suspect that I would have some great and wonderful qualities, and would have made famous and distinguished. But now the greater part of the Church, with few exceptions, do not know me even by name. So my very refusal of the honor is not known to all, but only to a few. But many of them probably concluded either that I was not chosen at all, or that I was rejected as unsuitable after being chosen, and not that I voluntarily refused the office. Chapter 3. His unworthiness of so high an office. Basil, his friend. But those who know the truth will admire your actions, Chrysostom, and yet you said that they were accusing me of vainglory and pride. From whom it is possible to expect praise? From the many? But they do not know the facts. Well then, from the few? But there your argument has veered quite round. Your only reason for visiting me now was that you might learn what answer you should give them. Why am I now so exact on these matters? Wait a moment, and you shall learn. Even if all men had been known to the truth, they need not have accused me of arrogance or vainglory. And you shall learn one fact more, that there is no slight danger in store for those who make this venture, if there are such, which I do not believe, as well as for those who suspect it of others. Chapter 4. Hey Snuba! The majesty of Christian priest at the Eucharist. Let's make sure we're pronouncing that word right. With our translator.
Euclanced.
Euclanced. Interesting. Priest of the Euclanced. Although the priestly office is discharged upon earth, it ranks among celestial ordinances, and this is natural, for no man, no angel, no archangel, no other created power but the Creator himself appointed this order, and persuaded us, while still abiding in the flesh, to represent the angelic ministry. Wherefore the priest must be as pure as if he were standing in heaven himself amid those powers. Fearful and awful were the symbols which existed before the ministry of grace, as, for example, the bells, the pomegranates, the stones on the breastplate, the stones on the... Look at this new word added to our vocabulary list. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Look at this.
Ephod.
Ephod, and I'm pretty sure this says mitri, but let's just make sure. Ephod,
Mitre.
Ephod, mitre, and diadem.
Diadem.
Ephod, mitre, and diadem. Awesome! Now let's keep going. The long robe, the golden crown of the Holy of Holies, the deep hush within. But should any one examine the things belonging to the ministry of grace, he will find that, however simple they may be, they will yet fearful and awful. The statement made about the law is true in this matter also, that which hath been made glorious hath not been made glorious in this respect, for the sake of glory that surpasseth. When you see the Lord sacrificed and lying before you, and the priest standing over the sacrifice and praying, and all who partake reddened with that precious blood, can you think that you are still among men and standing on earth? Are you not straightway transported to heaven, and having cast forth your soul, every fleshly thought, do you not, with naked soul and pure mind, look around the things in heaven? Oh, the marvel! Oh, the loving kindness of God to men! He that sits above with the Father is at the same time held in our hands, and suffers himself to be clasped and embraced by those who wish, and all then do this by the eyes. Do you think that this work deserves contempt, or that it is such that any one can be uplifted against. Would you see the the magnitude of the sacred office from another marvel? Hey, Connie, let's quickly read over what this is. It's explanation. I'll give you guys a moment to screenshot this. If you full screen the video, you'll be able to screenshot this yourself. I'll give you guys 7 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With that being said, now let's continue. Picture, I pray, before your eyes Elijah and the vast crowd standing round him, and the sacrifice lying on the altar of stones. All the rest are still and hushed in deep silence. The prophet alone is praying. Then of a sudden the flame flung down from heaven upon the offering. This is a wonderful and awful picture. Pass from that scene to what is now performed. You will see things not only wonderful to look upon, but transcending all terror. The priest stands, bringing down not fire, but the Holy Spirit, and he offers prayer for a long space, not that a fire may be kindled above and destroy the offering, but that grace may fall on the sacrifice, through that prayer, and kindle the souls of all, and make them appear brighter than silver refined by fire. Can anyone not utterly distraught and frenzied despise this awful rite? Do you not know that no human soul could ever have borne the fire of that sacrifice, but they would all have been brought utterly to naught, had not the help of grace of God been lavishly bestowed. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The power of absolution raises the priest above kings. If anyone should consider how great is the marvel for a human being, still compounded of flesh and blood, to be able to approach that blessed and spotless nature, then he will see clearly how great is the honor which the grace of Spirit has bestowed upon the priests. It is through them that this work is performed, and other work no less than this, in its influence alike upon our dignity, upon our salvation. For dwellers upon earth, although abiding on earth, have been entrusted with the stewardship of things in heaven, and have received an authority which God has given neither to angels nor to archangels. It has never been said to them, What things soever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound also in heaven, and what things soever ye shall loose shall be loosed. Those who are lords upon the earth have indeed the power of binding, but over bodies only. But this binding touches the soul itself, and reaches through heaven and all things that the priests shall do on the earth. God ratifies above, and the Master confirms the decision of his servants. Indeed, he has given them nothing less than the whole authority of heaven. For he says, Whosoever sins ye forgive, they are forgiven. And whosoever ye sins ye retain, they are retained. What authority could be greater than this? The Father hath given all judgment to the Son, but I see that the Son has placed it all in their hands, for they are as though they were already translated to heaven, and had transcended upon human nature, and were freed from our passions, and so have been raised to this great office. Further, if a king bestow this honor on one of his subjects, authorizing him to cast whom he will into prison, and again to release him, such an one is envied and looked up to by all. But the priest as received from God an authority as much greater as heaven, is more precious than earth, and souls than bodies, and yet there are men so little impressed with the honor bestowed upon the priest, that they can conceive that some of those entrusted with it will even despise the gift. Shame on such madness! For it is palpable madness to despise this great office, without which we can receive neither salvation nor the good things promised to us. If a man cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven, except he be regenerate through water and the Spirit, he who eateth not the Lord's flesh and drinketh not his blood is excluded from everlasting life. And all these things are brought to pass through no one else, but only through those hallowed hands. I mean, priests. How shall any one without their help be able to escape the fire of hell, or to obtain the crowns which await us? These are they who have been entrusted with the pangs of spiritual travail, and charged with the birth that is through baptism. Through them we put on Christ and are united with the Son of God, and become members of that blessed person. They should therefore be not only more feared than rulers and kings, but more honorable even than parents. They begot us of blood and the will of flesh, but the others are the authors of our birth from God, of that happy regeneration, of that true freedom, and of the adoption according to grace. Chapter 6. The power of a priest greater than that of a father. The priests of the Jews had authority to cure leprosy of the body, or rather not cure it, but only to examine those who have been cured. And you know how the office of the priest was at that time an object of eager contention. But our priests have received absolute authority, not over leprosy of the body, but over uncleanliness of the soul, and not to examine it when cured, but to cure it, so that they who make light of these must be far more accused than Dathan and his company, and deserving of greater punishment. Although they claimed an office which did not belong to them, still they held it in wonderful esteem, and they showed this by coveting it with great eagerness. But these men have dared a deed contrary to, yet far more insolent than, theirs, though the office has since been enhanced in power and dignity. As touching the right estimate of the office, there is no difference between coveting an honor which does not belong to you, and making light of it. The difference between contempt and admiration marks the excess of one sin over the other. What soul is then so wretched as to despise such mighty blessings? None, I should say, unless it were subject to a demoniacal impulse. Howbeit, I will proceed again to the topic from which I digressed. God has given a greater power to priests than to natural parents, not only in administering chastisement, but in deeds of mercy. And the difference between the present and the future life shows the difference between the two. Parents bring us into the present life, but these into the life to come. Parents cannot avert bodily death, nor drive away the visitation of disease, but these have often saved the sick soul that is about to die, in some cases of others by not suffering them to fall, and that not only through instructing and warning them, but through helping them by prayers. Not only when they make us regenerate, but after this they have authority to remit our sins. Is any among you sick? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord, and the prayer of faith shall save him that is sick. And the Lord shall raise him up, and if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. Again, natural parents cannot help their sons if they offend any that are mighty and powerful. And priests have often appeased the anger not only of rulers or of kings, but even of God. Is there any who still will dare to charge me with arrogance? I think my reasoning has brought such religious awe to the souls of my hearers that they are no longer accusing those who avoid this honor of arrogance and daring, but those who seek and covet it. If it be true that, when those entrusted with the government of cities are unwise and over-hasty, they overturn the cities and ruin themselves as well, how much power do you think he needs, both in himself and from above, to avoid error? Who has received the task of adorning the bride of Christ? Chapter 7. Thank you, Wayne, for the follow. St. Paul's view of the priestly office. No one loved Christ more than Paul. No one showed greater zeal than he. No one was thought worthy of higher grace. Still, in spite of all these advantages, he fears and trembles on behalf of this government, and those who are his subjects. I fear," he said, "lest the serpent beguiled Eve, so your thoughts should be corrupted from the simplicity which is toward Christ." And again, "I was with you in fear and much trembling." And yet he was a man who was caught up into the third heaven, and shared in the unspeakable things of God, and endured death. Every day after he came to believe, he was a man who did not wish to use even the authority given him by Christ, lest any of those who believed should be made to stumble. If then he who went beyond the commands of God, and nor sought his own advantage, but that of those whom he governed, was so filled with fear when he looked on the greatness of his office, what shall we suffer who often seek our own, who not only fail to go beyond the commands of Christ, but oftener fall short of them? Who is weak, he says, and am I not weak? Who is made to stumble, and I burn not? Such an one should the priest be, or rather it is not enough to be such an one, for these qualities are little or nothing compared to what I am about to say. What is this? I could wish, he says, that I were
Anathema.
anathema. I were anathema for Christ, for my brethren's sake, my kinsmen, according to the flesh. If any man can utter these words, if there be any who has a soul reaching the greatness of this prayer, he might be justly accused for refusing office. But if any man should fall as far short of this virtue, as I do, he deserves to be hated, not when he refuses, but when he accepts. If there were need to choose one of the post of general, and if those appointed to bestow the honor dragged forward a coppersmith or a cobbler or any other such mechanic, and trusted the army to him, I should not have praised that wretched fellow for not refusing it, and admitting to take every precaution to avoid thrusting himself into inevitable ruin. If it suffices simply to be called pastor, and to administer the work haphazard, and there is no danger, then let him who will charge me with vainglory. But if one who undertakes this care needs much wisdom, and before wisdom much grace of God, and a brightness of character, and purity of life, and superhuman virtue, do not refuse to pardon me, because I was unwilling to perish in vain and without reason. If any one were to bring a merchant vessel of large tonnage, let's discover the word together. In 3, 2, 1.
Tonnage.
Tonnage. Let's go. Merchant vessel of large tonnage, filled with rowers, and weighed down with a costly freight, and were to seat me at the rudder, and command me to cross the Aegean?
Aegean.
And
Etruscan.
Aegean or Etruscan sea. I should have recoiled at his first words. If anyone had asked me my reason, I should have replied, lest I should sink the ship. Chapter 8. The priest compared to a navigator. Then when the loss concerns money, and the danger is bodily death, no one will accuse me for using much forethought. But when the shipwrecked are destined to be plunged not into this sea, but into the abyss of fire, and the death which awaits them is not that which separates the soul from the body, but that which sends both the one and the other into eternal punishment. Then will you be angry and hostile towards me for not throwing myself headlong into such an unutterable woe. Do not, I beg and pray you. I know how weak and puny is my own soul. I know the magnitude of that ministry and the great difficulty of the work. More billows vex the soul of the priest than the gales which trouble the sea. Chapter 9. First of all, there is that most terrible rock of vainglory, more dangerous than the Siren's rock, of whose marvels the poets sing. For many who were able to pass that rock and escape unscathed, but to me This rock is so dangerous that even now, when no necessity drives me into the abyss, I cannot keep clear of the peril. If anyone were to commit this charge to me, he would practically bind my hands behind my back and deliver me as a victim to the wild beasts that inhabit that rock, for them to rend me every day. What wild beasts are theirs? Anger? Gloom? Envy? Strife? Slanderous accusation, falsehood, hypocrisy, intrigue, I don't know how to pronounce this word.
Imprecations.
Imprecations against those who have done no harm. Delight at unseemly behavior of fellow priests. Sorrow at their success. Desire for praise, yearning for honor, which more than anything else hurls the human soul to destruction. Teaching intended to please, paying sordid court, ignoble flattery, contempt for the poor, fawning on the rich, bestowing unreasonable honors and harmful favors which are dangerous alike to those who give and who receive them. Servile fear, befitting speech.
Servile.
Servile fear, befitting only the meanest of slaves, loss of freedom, of speech, a great affection of humility, the destruction of truth, the suppression of convictions, and the reproof, or rather an excessive exercise of it, against the humble, while no one so much as to open his lips against those who wield power. These are the wild beasts, and there are worse than these bred upon that rock. Those who are once seized by them are perforce dragged into such slavery, and to please even women they often do many things which it is not fitting to relate. The divine law excluded women from this ministry, but they struggle violently to thrust themselves in, and sense of themselves they can do nothing. They perform all their actions through others, and they have acquired such power that they choose and expel priests at their will. The world is turned upside down, and the truth of the proverb can be tested that the ruled govern their rulers, and I only wish that the offenders were men, but they were those who are not even suffered to teach. To teach, do I say? The blessed Paul did not even allow them to speak in church. But I heard some one say the priests had given them such freedom of speech that they even rebuke the prelates of the church, and censure, I don't know how to pronounce these words. Thank you guys so much for the wait.
Prelates.
Prelates. Oh, Gentiles, prelates. Okay, cool. Prelates. Praetoriat?
Censure.
Censure. Prelates. Censure. Rebuke the prelates of the church and censure them with great bitterness, than masters censuring their own servants. And let no one think that I am bringing these charges against all. There are, I know, many who have escaped these entanglements, and there are more than numerous than those who have been caught in them. Chapter 10. The officer must not be blamed for its unworthy members. Nor do I venture to blame the priestly office for these evils. God forbid that I should be so mad. Wise men do not blame the steel for murder, nor wine for drunkenness, nor strength for outrage, nor courage for reckless daring. But they say that those who make a wrongful use of the gifts of God are to blame, and punish them accordingly. For the priestly office might not justly accuse us of not handling it aright. It is not to blame itself for the evils I have described. On the contrary, we, for our part, have defiled it with so many stains by entrusting it to ordinary men. Screenshotting that. And they eagerly receive what is offered to them, without first acquiring knowledge of their own souls, or considering the gravity of the work. And when they come to exercise of it, their eyes are blinded with inexperience, and they infect the people with whom they have been entrusted with, countless ills. This fate, then, is what had nearly befallen myself. Had not God speedily rescued me from these dangers in his mercy to his church and my soul? Tell me, what is the source from which you suppose all the disorder arises in the churches? I think the only source is the careless and random way in which the prelates are chosen. For the head should be the strongest member, in order that they may be able to control the evil exhalations which proceed from the rest of the body below, and regulate them properly. But when it happens to be weak in itself, it is unable to repel those attacks that engender disease, and is rendered weaker than it by nature, and destroys the rest of the body along with itself. To prevent this happening, in the present case, God has placed me in the position of the feet, a position which I received at the beginning. There are many other qualities, Basil, in addition to those I have enumerated, which a priest ought to have, and which I lack. And before all of these is this: his soul should be clear on every side from the ambition of office. For if he has a natural inclination for this dignity, when he attains it, he kindles the flame more strongly, and being seized violently, he undergoes countless evils in order to secure his hold upon it, to the extent of using flattery or submitting to ignoble and unseemly treatment, or expending large sums of money. I pass over for the present the fact that some men have filled churches with streams of blood, and have returned cities contending for this dignity. Hi! What's that? Eat the brownie? You got me brownies? Hold on. Hi, Star! You got cookies! Thank you! Here.
No, until Arlene's sister gave it to us.
Wow!
No, those for my coworkers, Star. They ordered that.
Yeah.
That's a fundraising cookies.
Mhm.
You're gonna bring it to work.
Do you want me help? Wait, I didn't hear you.
Oh.
You cold?
Karuski pie. Hi, child.
It's cold.
Take a shower soon, okay? Shower together.
I hug you. Are you warm?
Yeah. I want to. Please.
Hug. Mwah. Mwah. I miss you. I love you. How is it feeling? I'm still streaming.
But then you thought that something happened?
No.
Okay. Because it took so long.
Here, get into the blanket. Get in the blankie.
Get in these.
Lift your legs up. Lift your feet. Okay. Are you cozy?
Look, a snowman. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Two snowmen.
Can I kiss your forehead? Okay. I'm gonna go stream. What? What? You wanna see my necklace? Okay, come here. Wow. Can I kiss your hand? Okay. Hi. Jose, appreciate you so much for the follow. Okay, since I'm distracted anyway, let's quickly see if anyone has commented and say hi. Boop 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 boop.
Oh, I thought you wanted this, no?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Bowl in a bowl, so it's not the crumbs.
That's it. Oh, there it is. La Luciano says, bro, asterisk. Discount Von Gao says, I thought this book wasn't all that until the plot twist in chapter 4. What plot twist? Snoop says, sup, homie? What's up? Star Simple says, hi, Xelly, how you been? Hi, Star Simple, it's been a while. I've been blessed. How are you? 0327, thank you so much for the follow. Akani says, rah, rah. OG says, hey, hi. My planet over universe. This is fire. Keep going. Let's go. Wayne, appreciate your follow. Akani says, I like Paul. Me too. Akani says, I've never heard some of these words. This was like 100 years ago? Thousands of years ago? Leo says, God bless you, dog. God bless you too. I was laughing at the word dog. Akani says, no fair. Ken says, side-eye. Akani says, that's adorable. Ken says to Akani, thumbs up. Jose, hi. Thank you so much for the follow. OG says, I've returned. Welcome back. Okay, now with that being said, let us continue. So, where did I last leave off? I pass over, for the present, the fact that some men have filled churches with streams of blood and overturned cities, and contending for this dignity, lest some should think my words incredible. The right course, I think, is to be so careful about the task as to avoid so grave a responsibility at the outset. But when once you are placed in office, do not wait for the judgment of others. If you should happen to have been guilty of a sin that calls for deposition, but anticipate this and why am I mispronouncing words all of a sudden? And resign your office. In this way, there is a likelihood of receiving God's mercy. But if you cling to office beyond your deserts, you deprive yourself of all pardon, and kindle God's anger the more by adding a second and more serious offense. However, no one will always endure the strain, for it is a terrible thing indeed to covet this honor. And in saying this, I am not at variance with the blessed Paul, but entirely in concord with what he says. What are his words? If a man seeketh the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work. But I said it was terrible to desire not the work, but the power and authority. Chrysostom no doubt had in his mind the contrast. See the room between Dasmus and you. Chapter 11. The bishop must not fear disposition, and not avoid ambition. I think it is right to repel this longing with all possible earnestness. Wait, Star, let me finish. I will play with you after I finish the reading, okay? Hi.
So when I was golfing, so in golf, it's like the opposite. Like if you get 3 and someone has the 2 wins just because it's lower. So I got 0 points, and my mom got 4 points.
Dang.
And she got embarrassed just because I won.
Dang. How was it?
Good.
Awesome. Did you have a good day today? What did you eat today? Did you drink some water? Why'd you look at me like that? You're like, don't tell the answer, don't tell the answer. Yeah, yeah. Why are you laughing? You're so adorable. I love you. You like that cookie? Okay, I'm gonna get back to my streaming, okay? And I'll play with you after I finish. Can I focus on my streaming and you let me focus until I finish? Thank you. I love you. Mwah! I'll give you attention later, I promise. Don't be sad. Don't be sad. I'm right here. I'll give you attention later, okay? I love you.
Mommy should drink water, okay? Huh?
So chapter 11. The bishop must not fear deposition and must avoid ambition. I think it right to repel this longing with all possible earnestness, and not for a moment to suffer our soul to be overcome by it, to the end that we may have freedom to do what we will, for he who does not desire to gain fame in this position of authority does not fear the loss of it. And if he has not this fear, he can act with the freedom which befits Christian men, whereas they who fear and dread deposition from that office endure bitter slavery, which overflows with all manner of evil, and are often compelled to offend against both man and God. Now the soul ought not to be in this condition, but as in warfare, we see the noble spirited fight eagerly, and fall so bravely, so also they have attained this dignity, should be ready either to be consecrated to the office or to be relieved of it, as befits Christian men, knowing that such deposition brings no less a crown than the office itself. For when any one suffers such a fate because he is determined not to submit to something which is unbecoming or unworthy of his position, he procures punishment for those who wrongfully depose him, and a greater reward for himself. Blessed are ye, says our Lord, when men shall reproach you and persecute you, and say all manner of evil against you, falsely, for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. And this is so when one is expelled by men of his own order. Hold on, I'm going to screenshot that. His own order, either through envy, or to please others, or through enmity, or from any other wrong motive. Now, when it falls to the lot of any one who suffers this treatment at the hands of his enemies, I do not think that I need to argue in order to prove the greatness of the profit which they confer on him by their wickedness. We must therefore be vigilant on every side, and make a careful search that no spark of that desire, be secretly smouldering anywhere. It is much to be wished also that they, who at first were free from this affection, should be able to avoid it when they have entered the office. But if any one cherishes in himself this terrible and savage monster before he attains the office, it is impossible to say into what a furnace he will fling himself after he has attained it. For my own part, I possess this desire in a great degree. Do not think that I would ever lie to you out of self-deprecation. And this fact, combined with all the other reasons, alarmed me greatly, and impelled me to take to flight, just as lovers of the human person endure severe torment of their passion, so long as they are allowed to be near the objects of their love, but throw off their madness when they are removed as far as possible from those whom they desire. So also they who covet this office find the evil intolerable while they are near it, but they extinguish the desire along with their expectations as soon as they abandon hope. This, then, is no slight motive, and if it had been the only motive, it would have sufficed to keep me from the dignity. Chapter 12. The bishop should have a grasp of detail, but as it is, there is another motive no less than the former. What is this? A priest must be sober and clear-sighted, and possess 1,000 eyes in every direction, for he lives, not for himself alone, but for a great multitude. But I am sluggish and remiss, and scarcely sufficient for my own salvation, as even you would admit, who are most eager to hide all my faults by reason of your love for me. Do not now speak to me of fasting and vigils, and sleeping on the ground, and other bodily discipline. You know how far I come in short of all of this. Hold on. I will read comments later and address everything in the comments afterwards, when I finish the chapter. Or book. But even if these exercises had been carefully regulated by me, they would have been unable with my present sluggishness to befit me at all with a view to this post of authority. Such practices might be of great benefit to a man shut up in a cell and concerned only with his own soul. But when a man is divided among so great a multitude, and inherits all the private cares of those who are under his rule, what appreciable help can he give towards their improvement, unless he be endowed with a robust and vigorous soul? Chapter 13. Self-mortification is less important than self-repression. Marvel, not if, in connection with such endurance, I require another test of bravery of the soul. We see that indifference to food and drink and a soft couch is no hard matter to many, especially to such as are rudely constituted and have been thus trained from the early days, and to many others also, for bodily discipline and custom might mitigate the severity of these exercises, but insult and abuse and vulgar language and taunts from inferiors, whether idly or justly uttered, and complaints vainly and rashly made by the rulers and the ruled, few can endure. Indeed, only one or two here and there. You may see those who are strong in the former exercises so bewildered by these as to be more furious than savage wild beasts. We must keep such men as these outside the precincts of the priesthood. For if a prelate should neither stubbornly refuse food nor go barefooted, he would do no injury to the well-being of the church, but a fierce temper causes great disaster both to its possessor and to his neighbors. There is no threat from God against those who fail to do the things mentioned, but they who are angry without a cause are threatened with hell and hell fire, and as then the lover of vainglory adds fresh fuel to the fire when he assumes the government of numbers, so he cannot control his temper while alone or in the company of friends, but is easily carried away by it. Should he be entrusted with the rule of an entire congregation, is like a wild beast goaded by thousands on every side, and cannot abide in peace himself, while he spreads innumerable evils among the people committed to his charge. Chapter 14. The danger of a passionate temper. Nothing bedims the purity of the mind and clearness of vision so much as undisciplined and impetuous anger. This, says a writer, destroys even the prudent, for the soul's eye is darkened as in a battle by night, and cannot distinguish friends from enemies, nor the dishonorable from the honorable. It treats all men alike, even though some evil consequence ensues, bearing it all lightly in order to gratify the soul's pleasure, for the fire of anger is a kind of pleasure, and it tyrannizes over the soul more grievously than pleasure, and thoroughly unsettles all its unhealthy condition. It easily excites men to arrogance and ill-timed enmities and unreasonable hatred, and it is forever causing them to commit vain and foolish offences, and engenders many other such violent words and deeds, and the soul is swept along with loud rush of passion, and has no base on which to rest her own weight and resist such violence. Basil, his friend. I will no longer suffer your mock modesty to proceed further. Who does not know how far you are removed from this disease? Chrysostom. Well then, my friend, do you wish to bring me near the pyre, and rouse the sleeping monster? Do you not know that my freedom from this fault is due not to my innate goodness, but to my love of retirement? It is much to be desired that one in this condition should remain by himself or in company with one or two friends, for so he will be able to escape from the fire arising from this passion, but not if he falls into the abyss of all these cares, for then he draws not himself alone, but many others with him to the brink of ruin, It makes men more careless in pursuit of righteousness, for the mass of people under government are wont, for the most part, to regard the character of their rulers as a kind of model, and to fashion themselves by them. How then can you check this fury if you swollen yourself with passion? Who among the multitude would forthwith desire to learn self-control when he sees his ruler irritable? It is quite impossible for the failings of the priests to be concealed. On the contrary, even their smallest weaknesses are soon detected. As long as an athlete remains at home and engages in content with no one, however weak he be, he can keep his weakness secret. But when he strips himself for the trial of strength, he is soon detected. So when other men, those who lead a retired and quiet life, have their solitude as a cloak for their private failings, but when they are brought into public life, they are compelled to strip themselves of their retirement as a garment, and to display their souls naked for all eyes to gaze upon, through their visible movements, as then their right deeds benefit many, and challenge them to equal zeal for their faults, make other men idle in the quest of virtue, and render them indolent in their pursuit from what is excellent. Wherefore the beauty of his soul must shine bright on every side, to the end that it may be able both to gladden and to enlighten the souls of many of those who see him. The sins of ordinary men are committed, as it were, in the darkness, and ruin only those who do the deeds. But when a man becomes famous, and is known to many, his misdeeds inflict a common injury on all who make them remiss, yet more supine in their efforts for what is good, and by goading those who wish to improve themselves to despair. Apart from this, the offices of the insignificant, even when published abroad, inflict no serious injury, but those who are seated upon the heights of this honor can in the first place be seen by every eye. Then, if they make a mistake in the most trifling matter, their small error is magnified in the eyes of the rest. For all men measure the sin, not by the standard of the deed, but by the position of him who committed the deed. Thus, the priest must gird around with armor of steel, by unremitting zeal and constant sobriety of life. And he must ever be on the alert lest anyone finding a naked and guarded spot should strike him a deadly blow. For all men stand round him ready to wound him and cast him down, and these are not only his foes and enemies, but many of those who pretend to love him. We must therefore choose souls as hardy as the grace of God once made the bodies of those saints in the Babylonian furnace. It is not brushwood, pitch, and tow that are the fuel of this fire, but something far worse than that. It is no material fire to which they are exposed, but the all-devouring flame of envy envelopes them, which rises up on every side and covers them more completely, and searches their life more thoroughly than the fire did. The bodies of those young men, when then it finds the slightest trace of stubble at once, it fastens upon it and burns up that weak part, while all the rest of the edifice, even if it is brighter than the sun's rays, is scorched and utterly blackened by the smoke. For so long as the life of the priest is well regulated at every point, their intrigues cannot hurt him. But if he be guilty of a small oversight, as is likely for a human being who is crossing the devious ocean of this life, none of the rest of his good deeds are of any avail to enable him to escape the words of evil speakers, but that small offense casts a shadow over all the rest of his life, and all men wish to judge the priest, not as one clothed in flesh, nor as one possessing a human nature, but as an angel, and as one freed from future frailty. As all men fear and flatter a tyrant so long as his power lasts, because they cannot depose him. But when they see his power going, those who are just now his friends throw aside the hypocritical esteem, and are suddenly converted into foes and enemies, and discover all his weaknesses, and assail and dethrone him. So it is always with a bishop. those who but now flatter and courted him when his authority was unimpaired, when once they find a slight handle, make vigorous preparations to depose him, not merely as a tyrant, but as something far worse than that. Again, as a tyrant fears his bodyguard, a bishop dreads above all his neighbours and his fellow ministers, for no others covet his office so greatly, or know his character so intimately. For should any accident be like to befall him, they, being near him, and perceive it before the others, and in any slanderous statements which they make, they can easily win belief, and by exaggerating strifes take their victim captive, for the well-known saying of the apostle has been inverted, and if one member suffereth, all the members rejoice, and if one member is honoured, all the members suffer, unless there be one by great discretion can face all dangers. Do you then send me forth to do so terrible war? Did you think that my spirit would suffice for so subtle and a diverse contest? From what on whose information did you form this belief? If it was God who certified it, show me the oracle, and I obey. But if you cannot do so and form a decision from popular conjecture, then suffer yourself no longer to be deceived. For on the matter of my own powers you should believe me, in preference to others, since no man knoweth the things of a man, save the spirit of the man which is in him. I think I have persuaded you now by these remarks of mine, if I did not before, that I should have made both myself and those who chose me ridiculous by accepting this office, and that it would have entailed great loss if I had returned again to the path of life in which I now am. For it is not merely envy, but desire for office, a power far more potent than envy, that is wont to arm the majority of men against one who possesses it. And, as covetous sons view with displeasure their father's protracted life, so when certain of these see the priestly office held by any one for a prolonged period, they are anxious to depose him, as it would be sacrilege to make away with him, since all are anxious to succeed him, and each man expects that the office will fall to him. Chapter 15. The care needful in making promotions. Do you wish to show you still another form that this contest assumes, and one fraught with countless dangers? Come then, peep into the public festivals at which according to custom, I don't know how to pronounce that. We get to learn a new word.
Ecclesiastical.
I meant to take that one, not that one. Nice. Ecclesiastical. Ecclesiastical vacancies are genuinely filled. You will see the bishop assailed with accusations as numerous as the people whom he rules. All those who have the right of bestowing the honour have been divided into many sections, and the synod of elders can be seen agreeing neither among themselves nor with the one who has received the
Episcopal Church.
episcopal office, but every man is opposed to all others, while one is in favour of this candidate, and another in favour of that. The reason is that they do not all regard purity of character as one qualification at which they ought to look. But there are other considerations which favour appointment to the office. For example, let this man be chosen, says one, because he belongs to the distinguished family. Let that candidate be selected, because he possesses great riches and would not need to be sustained out of the church's revenues. Let this man be chosen because he is a convert from the other side, and one is anxious to single out a friend for honour, another a kinsman, another his flatterer, but none will look for the suitable man or make character any test. For my part, I am so far from regarding these qualifications as worth consideration, that if a man showed that he possessed the important quality of piety to a great degree, I should not at once venture to select him, unless he combined with this considerable intellectual power. For I know many who have kept themselves under discipline all their life, and have exhausted their bodies with fasting, who, so long as they were permitted to live alone and attend to their own needs, were acceptable to God, and every day made great progress in this kind of wisdom. Yet when they emerged from their retirement and were compelled to rectify the ignorance of others, some did not for a moment suffice for so great a responsibility, while others who were compelled to remain at their post abandoned their former careful practices and seriously injured their own souls, without befitting those of others. Again, we will not out a simple respect for his age elevate a man to the higher office who has spent all his life in the lower orders of the ministry and has reached extreme old age. What if, after that life of his, he should still be unsuited to the work? And I do not say this out of disrespect for gray hairs, nor do I lay down a rule that we should exclude from this office those who come from the monastic circle, for it has happened that many from that body have shed luster. Actually, what is that? Luster?
Luster.
Luster upon this office. But I am anxious to show that if neither piety by itself nor old age are sufficient to prove a man worthy of the office of bishop, the reasons mentioned above are hardly likely to do so. Others add reasons which are stranger still. Some are singled out for election in order that they may not join the enemy's ranks. Others, because of their bad character, prevent them doing great harm if they are overlooked. Could any worse violation of right take place than when men of bad character, who are filled with innumerable faults, are courted for the very reasons for which they should be punished, and are elevated to the rank of bishop for reasons for which they should be forbidden to cross the threshold of the church? Need we go any further to seek the cause of God's anger when we allow such sacred and beautiful things to be profaned by wicked and worthless men? When some men are entrusted with these things unsuited to them, and others with things quite beyond their powers, they make the church as shifting and unstable as the Euripus. Euripus. I used to deride secular rulers because they distribute honors not on the grounds of excellent character, but of wealth, and of length of years, and of worldly rank. But when I heard that this unreasonable attitude had invaded our domain, I no longer regarded their action as so serious. For what wonder is it if worldly people who love popular praise and whose chief motive is desire for money make this mistake, when those whose aim is to be rid of all these desires act no better? For although they are contending for heavenly rewards, they form their plans as though they had to decide merely about acres of land or something else of the same kind, and take ordinary men and set them over matters of such value that for their sake the only begotten Son of God disdained not to empty himself of his own glory, and to be made man, and to receive the form of a servant, and to be spitted upon, and to be buffeted, and to die the death of shame. They do not stop at this, but add other actions which are stranger still. They do not merely choose the unworthy, but they reject the suitable, as though it were necessary to assail the safety of the church from both positions, or as though the former action were not sufficient to kindle the wrath of God. They have added another deed. That's my dad. Not less pernicious. Pernicious. Indeed, not less pernicious. I think it is as shameful to keep out the good as to bring in the bad. This is done to the end that the flock of Christ may be unable to find comfort on any side and to draw its breath freely. Does not this action deserve innumerable thunderbolts? Does it not deserve a hotter hell than that which we are threatened? But yet all these ills are borne patiently by him who desires not the death of a sinner, so much as that he should be coveted and live. How can we sufficiently admire his love? How can we marvel at his mercy? They who are Christ destroy the things of Christ more than his enemies and adversaries. But the Lord still shows his kindness and calls us to repentance. Glory be to thee, O Lord. Glory to thee! How fathomable is thy love, how great the riches of thy forbearance! They who through thy name have come to be honorable and respected instead of poor and dishonored, use thy honor against him who gave it, and dare to do deeds which none should dare, and instantly intrude into holy things, rejecting and excluding the earnest to the end that which men may have suffered, and to the end that wicked men may have perfect freedom and utmost security and subverting whatsoever they desire. And if you wish to learn the causes of this scandal, you will find them like unto those mentioned before. They have one root, and if I may say so, one mother, namely envy. And they are of various kinds. Let this man be excluded, says one, because he is young, and that man because he has not learned to flatter. A third because he has offended so and so. A fourth that such and such a man may not be hurt by seeing that one whom he recommended rejected, and this man selected. A fifth because he is good and just. A sixth because sinners fear him, and a seventh for some other such reason, for indeed they have no lack of as many pretexts as they may desire. Nay, the very number of existing bishops is brought up against them, when they have no better pretext, or they argue that it is inadvisable to promote a man suddenly into this honor, but gradually and by degrees, and they can find as many other causes as they wish. But I am anxious to ask you a question at this point. What ought a bishop to do when he has to contend against so many winds? How can he resist such mighty waves? How can he repel all these attacks? If he faces the problem in a straightforward manner, he converts all men into opponents and adversaries of himself, and those whom he chooses. And all their actions are guided by hostility to him. They stir up feuds daily, and heap endless ridicule on those whom he chooses, and so they either secure the rejection of these or introduce candidates of their own. It is the same as if a captain had pirates sailing with him on his ship, continually plotting every hour against himself, the sailors, and the crew. If he prefers gaining favor with him to securing his own safety by choosing unsuitable men, he will incur God's enmity in place of theirs. And what could be more terrible than this? And his relations with them will involve greater difficulties than before, since all will be cooperating, and therefore greater in strength, as when savage winds meet from the contrary quarters. The sea which before was quiet becomes suddenly mad and furious, and destroys those who sail on it, so that the calm of the church was on admitting evil men is covered with surf and strewn with wrecks. Okay, it's already past 1 hour, so I'll be ending the live stream here today. Screenshotting, bookmarking. Let's go. Let me catch up with everyone's comments. This is the end of today's reading. I'll be reading I'm pretty sure this is book 3. This is still book 3, chapter 16. So book 3, chapter 16, page 86. Let's scroll back up and see what comments I missed. Oh! Jose, thank you for your follow. OG says, Aftertand. Connie says, you have yet to interview me like yesterday. I completely forgot. I also could not find your username. ITZ says, reign in hell over serving in heaven? Here a piss baby says, what am I watching? I seriously don't know. Greek translation of Christian literature. ITZ says, long live... It scrolled all the way back down, so I'm scrolling back up. Brandman Ban Jr. says, biblically, do men and women have different obstacles, and if so, what are they? I don't know how to answer that. O'Connie says to Brandman Bands Jr., yes, of course, God is also adamant on what our roles are. God teaches men leadership. Wait, God also teaches women, like, positions of leadership as well. And judges. O'Connie says, well, God teaches women submission and respect. Not completely. There's actually something that I want to discuss with a priest about in Genesis. Because it's going back to the first part of Genesis, where like God is punishing Adam and Eve for eating the apple. There's something I want to discuss. Lol54390. Appreciate your follow. That button wasn't working for some reason. Okay, I think I scrolled way too far up. Yeah, I did. There's way more to talk about it, but that's just the gist of it. Already read this. Anderson, thank you for the follow. Brandman Bands Jr. says, thank you for telling me, and I hope God sees your strength and discipline. I love judo too. Ivan Ruiz Mayo, appreciate your follow. Bingus, appreciate your follow. I think I read this part. Makani says to Bandmans Jr., thank you, brother. I thank God for you. You gonna stick around or are you going? TreyMac535 says, who in the back? My papa. TreyMac535 says, they got good taste. My dad? Was it something he was wearing? Giovanni says, is that LeBron? Dad, is it LeBron? My dad says yes. Miles says, can I watch basketball with your dad? No. Ken says, oh no, it was fun to hear. Snow says, are you drawing tonight? I am. Leaving now says, yo, the game is good right now. Connie says, I had 4 hours of judo this morning. Wonderful. Okay, I read all the comments. I'm getting kind of tired. I am tired. I'm gonna read the Holy Bible in my next live stream, and then I'm gonna do an art stream. So I'm gonna quickly end today's live and start a second stream where I read the Bible. I will see you there. If I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. With that being said, have a wonderful, lovely, blessed day, and see you next time. And Connie says, I may be mistaken, but was I mod yesterday? Yes, you were. Okay, with that being said, Kin says, good night or day. Good night or good day. Blessed be. God bless.